Shalom, shalom, shalom. This is another morning by morning. And today I want to talk about sibling and kinsmen rivalry. And I read from the book of Genesis chapter 31 and the relationship between Laban and Jacob and how they struggled with each other too long. Made me ask a few questions. The first one is it really God's will for relatives and siblings to continue living together after they are mature? I've seen that there are relatives, siblings, people in extended families who live just in the same compound. So they are congested in a village-like settlement. Their children, their grandchildren, their uncles, they are all there. They are congested in that village. And I ask myself, is it God's will for relatives to live like that? Is it not God's will for siblings, I wondered, to move away and settle away and establish establish families and livelihood away from where they were born and bred? Must they live together in that same area? Is it not God's will, probably, for them to move away and settle away from the land where they were bred? Number 3, isn't living together as siblings and relatives a breeding ground for rivalry and strife? And now that I'm in the book of Genesis chapter 36, I think I've got in a lot of sibling and kinsmen, relatives rivalry, so that now I'm asking myself, I had to ask myself those questions. Think of Cain and Abel, the jealousy there, the strife there, and even that finally Cain killed Abel. That was the first murder. Then what about Abraham and his nephew Lot? A lot of dishonor, disrespect, presumption. I think Lot just presumed, oh, this is my uncle, I will go wherever he goes. And he didn't even have he didn't seem to even get the godliness that was in his uncle. It looks like he didn't reap anything or get anything or benefit in any way in his own character. There was strife. And at different times, Abraham had to come and rescue Lot. A lot of waste of time and resources. What about Jacob and Esau? The contempt that was there, competition, malice, suspicion, revenge, lip service. There was also a lot of lip service. I would say the relationship between Jacob and Esau was a relationship that is sweet, bitter, hate, love. They never really struck a chord between them. They continued in strife. And even when they momentarily reconciled, when Jacob was coming from Paddan Aram, and I looked at the way they behaved one to the other, with the other, the body language there, you would tell that there was no friendship or love between them. There was a lot of love that was lost. And most of what they said there, to me, was lip service, was more public relations to manage the situation, so that now after that Esau went and lived in his land in Edom, and Jacob went on his own way. I don't think there is any other relationship that they had after that. What about Laban and Jacob? The competition, the open hatred between Laban and his nephew Jacob. Revenge, again malice and evil suspicion. And then they made a permanent covenant of rivalry and separation, where they even made a border, a boundary, and put rocks and said, never cross on my side and I will never cross to your side. Stay your way and I will stay my way. Live your life, let me live my life. And the angel of the Lord had to intervene because Laban had followed Jacob for 7 days and caught up with him. But before then, the Lord had to speak to him and tell him, please leave Jacob alone. Tell him nothing, neither either good or bad. Leave him alone. Let him just go his way. And I think about those relationships between siblings and relatives, and I find they are very difficult. Maybe why are they this difficult? Because there's too much familiarity. I think even about my own siblings. We meet and we are friends, but we can't stay too long together. It's good to visit them, but living together in the same environment, same land, using the same resources, because of the history, unresolved historical issues that one after they become adults, they need to go and sort them out there with the Lord and other people instead of living in the same locality, the same compound, the same, as they call it, ancestral land. Unresolved historical issues. Then their personality and ideological differences. You know, people have their own personalities. They, even if they are brothers or sisters, they don't have the same personality. They are not husband and wife. Why should people just insist of living together? And even if they live together, I think they should live in separate compounds and very defined boundaries. And for those who can afford, I think, they can even move away and just come to visit, because I think people thrive better when they are out there with other people. If they are Christians, with other Christians. If they are businessmen, with other businessmen out there. And thereby they are able to live in harmony. The Bible says, live at peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. And adds that if it depends on you, you live at peace with all men. Because there is also competition for space, competition for resources, which is completely unnecessary. If the Lord blesses us and we are able to live out there, pursue our own vision, we don't have to insist on living in a 1 acre land together or congested together and competing on this little land that probably we feel that we are entitled to because it's our parents' land. And while I am not proposing that we live in such a compound, we can live at peace, we have to leave and go, well, but I think it is wiser to just trust the Lord and move away and celebrate life with other people. Let me end with words from Genesis chapter 31, verse 38 to the end. This is the relationship. There were some words that Jacob told Laban, and some of the things here can only be captured well if I read. Jacob telling Laban, I've been with you for 20 years now. Your sheep and goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten rams from your flocks. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself. And you demanded payment from me for whatever was stolen by day or night. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime and the cold at night, and sleep fled from my eyes. It was like this for 20 years. I was in your household. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flocks, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, you would surely have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen my hardship and the toil of my hands. And last night he rebuked you. Laban answered Jacob. It's time now for Laban to reply. He was not happy. He was very furious. He said this, the women are my daughters, the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks. All you see is mine. Yet what can I do today about these daughters of mine, or about the children they have borne? Come now, let's make a covenant, you and I, and let it serve as a witness between us. So Jacob took a stone and set it as a pillar. He said to his relatives, gather some stones. So they took stones and piled them in a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar Sahadutha, and Jacob called it Gilead. Laban said, the heap is a witness between you and me today. That is why it is called Gilead. Gilead means witness. It is a witness of our separation, that we have a covenant, we have even eaten, and you stay on your side, and let me stay on my side. Then he said this, if you mistreat my daughters, or if you take any wives beside my daughters, even though no one is with you, remember that God is a witness between you and me. Laban also said to Jacob, here is this heap, and here is this pillar I have set up between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not go past this heap to your side to harm you, and that you will not go past this heap and pillar to my side to harm me. May the God of Abraham, and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. So Jacob took an oath in the name of the fear of his father Isaac. He offered a sacrifice there on the hill country and invited his relatives to a meal. And after they had eaten, they spent the night there. Early in the morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then he left and returned home. That is just an example of the kind of sibling rivalry, the kind of relative kinsmen rivalry I'm talking about. I have seen a lot of that, as I said, in the Bible, up to chapter 36 now of Genesis. I've just started. There are scores of others that I'm yet to read, I'm sure. And that is why I came up with this devotion and a thought and insight that we need to be so careful in the way we live with our relatives. I think the only connection we need to have, the blessed connection, is first of all with our wives, for those whom God has blessed with wives and husbands. A man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. There is that covenant. Then with our parents, and when we are adults, we may not necessarily have to obey our parents, but we need to honor them, and there is a connection. But with our siblings, I don't think there is any covenant. There is any law that says we ought to live with them. But when we live with them, as I said, we should endeavor and pursue peace with our relatives, because God wants us to live at peace, because our God is the God of peace. And with that, I want to say the Lord bless us even as we meditate on these important insights about our relationship with relatives. Thank you.